All right, here's the deal. A few weeks ago, after my friend Anthony has spent months trying to get my mother, Barbara, who apparently has stood in guilt of tremendous offense of all sorts of varied kinds, literally every single moment, every single response, every single choice, every single fork in the road that would happen over and over and over again after each reply, and then each reply after that, and then each reply after that. All of that constitutes a separate offense. So how many offenses is Barbara Winslow guilty of? I don't know. 600. 610, 618, 625, 738, 739, like that. You understand? That's how God counts it. That's how it's seen. So when we're engaged in the task of rebuking it all, there's another point I had that I just forgot. There's another point I had from earlier that I did want to cover. I can't remember. This is why I need like more support and help with this stuff. I can't remember what I'm saying half the time. I just have to like strain to you know how many times I almost burned my house down from cooking and then forgetting? You have any idea? You have any fucking idea? Maybe at least 10 times, I'd say at least 8 or so times in the last 6 months. Yeah. It'll be in waves. It'll usually be like 4 or 5 of them within a month. It's not on purpose. I have a problem here. I've been saying it to people. People aren't listening. It's not on purpose. I can't remember what the fuck is happening. People need to fucking help. Alright? There's reasons that I've also said as to why, which is a separate subject matter. Beyond just the neural damage in itself. It's multi factors of intersecting things. Now anyway, of everything I could remember, I'll just get as much out of the way as I can. And then if I remember later, I then have to re-record again and put more. That's how it is. That's why this all keeps going. Number one, because the wrong person refuses to admit they're wrong. Number two, or act like they're wrong, which is the actual correct thing that needs to happen. And number two, I keep like being like a neurally like again and again, again and again. You see? So instead of being a 5-minute video, it's a fucking 555-minute set of videos, because it's just me go help my brain damage, you fucking idiots, help my brain damage. Okay? So anyway, what the hell else was I saying? Fucking I hate you people who are responsible for this. May the correct karma befall you all. Yes. Good. That's good. God smiles when wrongdoers hurt and suffer and die. Metaphorically or figuratively speaking. And sometimes even literally speaking. Because they're all ultimately connected. They're one and the same ultimately at the end. Look at life. Look at the universe. Look at the Bible. Look at history. Look at it all. That's your lives. Your badness. Stop it. Hurt yourselves. Smack yourself so you learn. Oh, good. Okay. Now, what the hell else was I saying? Yeah, here's what this woman did. After months of delaying and denying and refusing, finally, I don't remember exactly what the catalyst of was, where I actually should remember, and because that's really extremely important to remark on these things and analyze them carefully and deeply. I can't remember exactly what the catalyst of change was. It may have just been a capricious change of mood, just randomly. Oh, okay, maybe now I feel like we will go meet. Okay, let's do that. You see? So if that's what it was, which actually, funny enough, my memory is not always great, but it's still even a little better than this, which actually is a sign that my memory might be getting even worse and worse regularly, which I've already said. I think that keeps happening. Oh yeah. Regardless, we all agree to meet. Now here's the thing. If you've been denying or withholding meetings with your son, and then all of a sudden after months finally you make a concession, like, you know what, let's come to that negotiating table, so to speak. Okay? That's a big deal. That's a big step. So in life, in a separate set of videos that I made once before, which I believe someone who I commissioned them to help me with the recording and posting of those videos. Well, she then went on later, many months or a year plus later, and just removed all of them out of some kind of sick form of spite. I told you people that every wrong thing you do will have a karmic attachment to it. So, you know, I don't know why you think you can just do whatever you want. No, don't love your feelings because they fucking betrayed you. But that's Satan. You loving your ideas is the definition of Satanism. It's called, I don't care what the objective cosmic background is. I love me right now, and me feels good when me does this. Grrr. Blow your head off already at that moment, because you already fucked it up. Fucking idiots. I hope everyone gets what they deserve. But mind you, those are taken off, so I don't know where they are now. Alright? So, don't worry about it. Here's the point. In those videos, I offered a very important analysis of what constitutes right and wrong and sin and not sin in the most substantive way possible. Christ said, love your neighbor, and others said other simple things. I had a good way too that came up for me at that time, which I decided to share for the first time ever. And it made sense. And even at that time, a few people were listening to it, they were like, dude, this is really spot on. And when you say it this way, it kind of is revolutionary. It's kind of revolutionary. I'll say it again in short, although I took 12 hours to analyze it and state it in the previous separate channel that I had for this. The definition of sin is withdrawing something that either was already extended or should have already been extended. And let me put it to you another way. If you have a monkey and then you give it one, and now it has one cookie, and it'll proceed to eat, and it will enjoy its one cookie now after it's all said and done. Well, simple transaction there, right? That's situation A. Well, that's a good situation, right? It had, then it got to eat it and it's happy, right? In the absolute sense, there was the eating of one cookie. Okay, well, I'm going to give you situation B, which is also, in the most ultimate sense, is the same thing as a matter of form in the superficial sense, but actually not really. It's also the eating of one cookie by a monkey. Alright, resuming once again. This damn thing keeps cutting off on the recording. Every once in a while it just stops. I don't even realize it doesn't make a beep or a flash. Just discreetly stops and I keep talking. Sometimes for a few minutes or several minutes or way longer, and then I realize, oh, all that pure, precious. It's like when you write a college paper, 15 pages of the most best thought you've ever written, and then boom, power off, no autosave. You wanna fucking go to Times Square and spray everybody in the face with a shotgun. Not really that extreme, but almost that extreme. You understand? So the point is this. What was I saying? The monkey, so the first monkey gets one cookie. It's happy. The second monkey, in a situation B, well, let's say you give it 2 cookies, and then you take away one of its cookies. Yeah, then what's going to happen? Exactly. So it still had one net cookie left over that it got to eat. Same like the first monkey, right? It's at the dry material level, it's the same. Both situations are the same in terms of the net absolute end effect, but they're not really the same, are they? At the level of energetic, dignity-based transactions, emotional transactions, they're not the same. One of them is good, one of them is a deficit and a bad. So how could that be, even though materially it's the same? Because material and the emotional, spiritual, energetic transactions are 2 different things in life. One of them is a beautiful gift to the monkey. Another set of events is an indignation to the monkey, to that monkey. So they both had one cookie at the end and got to eat it. One of them's happy, one of them wants to fucking rip your face off. Go figure that. So what's the real karmic principle behind it? What is the definition of sin? It's withdrawing anything after you have given it. You don't withdraw it unless it's with cause or with justification. So therefore, all unjustifiable retractions are sin, constitute sin in this life. That's it. It's that simple. All right? It might be what you agree to do. Therefore, always keep your word. Because if you say something to someone, so to leave them with an expectation of something, and they, especially if they rely on that expectation, but even if they didn't rely, it's still an indignation to someone. It's still a dishonor if you suddenly change my mind whenever I want. Because if someone is brought to feel and experience a karmic, a spiritual or energetic indignation in their own minds because of something you did, you are the one at fault. You are the one at fault. You, not them. That's the thing that cluster B types can't get. It's your fault when you did the thing that leads to the bad thing. And I'm going to use another example. I already used this in a pre-recording that got eliminated accidentally. I'm just repeating myself now what I said a few moments ago on a dead recording that you're not going to hear. So here it is again, now live. This one will be preserved. Imagine you have two types of girls, American girls and a Russian girl. You go to the American girl, she's a hi, 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 like as if she's your best friend your whole life. The moment you say anything to her, it's as high as if you're her fucking king for the moment, okay? And you could have anything you want maybe, and you're a very lucky man, all right? Well, guess what? The next day, everything that you thought was that you were special, no, you're not special. You get nothing from her the next day, and you never see her again. And she just gives the same to other people, but she doesn't give to you anymore. Why? Capriciousness and the fake warmth towards everybody, where actually you're sinning against everybody because you're always withdrawing that which you gave to so many people, so therefore you're causing indignation to them. So along similar principles, you know, when you give 2 cookies, don't take away 1. Better you give 1 and let them keep the 1 than to give 2 but take away 1. You see? Very important. Never take away what you've given. Now look at the example of the Russian woman. Traditionally, she's known as being warm in the end, but being very cold at first in a way that Westerners don't often understand. You'll say hello to the Russian one and they'll just be like, hello, like as if they don't know you. Why? Because you haven't earned anything yet necessarily, but here's the beautiful thing of it all. Superficially, at the very outset, at this most superficial level of analysis, dryly and simply will seem, oh well, therefore the American one's better because they treat you more warmly first as compared to the Russian one. I say no, the opposite is true. In the long game, you're going to be left angry after your experience with the American one, because they, as freely as they gave, is not a true giving, because that's called Indian giving. You give and then you take away. So you didn't really give, did you? You had a string on that gift, and you just tugged at it later at any point that you felt like it. That's a worse sin than if you never gave in the beginning. Why? Better I give the monkey 0 cookies, and it just stayed 0 cookies and it didn't get to eat that day. Then I gave it 2 cookies and then took half its food away at that moment in time and left it with only 1. It will have a fuller tummy and an angrier mind with more hate towards you. That's the point. It's not about the material, almost no connection. It's about what energetic transactions are you engaging with people. The psycho-emotional / spiritual economy is the economy that matters on this earth. That's primary. The material is secondary. That's where you people have it reversed. You think it's the material economy and transactionary ledger that is the one to maintain with closeness, and to regard the other things in a secondary way which yield to that. No, you have it backwards. You have it backwards. So the Russian one, You know how they're programmed? Well, maybe not as much anymore. And I've heard stories and read statistics about how the divorce rate is shooting up in the recent decades now there, because they've taken on a more Western lifestyle relatively. That could be the cause, but there's also tremendous other... They've been through a lot of damage. For the last 100 years, they've been through quite a mind job over there with all sorts of things. And then they haven't found stability yet, I don't think. Culturally or energetically. I don't think. It's just, may they find their stability. But anyway, here's the point. We know that traditionally, here's how the Russian woman is regarded, or the Soviet / Eastern Bloc woman. Cold to you at first, but once they open up, if they give you a little bit of nice, where they now you got into the next deeper layer of their heart like an onion, and now they give you smiles. Those smiles are once you have gained it, it's like a trophy that's permanently yours. It'll never get taken away from you, except in the event that you do something stupid, like where it's clearly bad. And then even then, what's a yin's nature is to have grace. Grace means even if you're doing something dumb, they still will believe in you and give you many chances and free good chances. That's the blessing of a real true woman, not the fake type of woman that this Barbara Winslow is, my fucking mother, who gives and then takes, smiles but then shames in a false slant. No, that's not true yin. So that's not good. But with a true yin, you might have a Russian. Once you merit the closeness and the hand holding and the warmth and the endearment, you just won that for life. You will never lose it again, unless you fuck it up, where it's totally you and then totally for a long time, like you keep fucking it up and they give you many chances. You have it for life. All right, an American woman will just ghost you. Why'd you stop texting him? Because I felt like it. And that's good enough in the twisted moral system's value system. Well, don't do that, because that's not actually a healthy energetic transaction, because it's treating you like a commodity, number one. You're not useful as a thing anymore, as a resource, by the evaluation of another, because that's a self-centered, they only think about them, number one. And number two, yeah, taken away from your human value, and they just don't have regard for how you feel. What a beautiful dog. That's a beautiful dog. All right, now where was I as I was recording this? Here we are. Where am I? I can't remember. Alright, I'm saying something about this. Can't remember what I was saying. The beautiful dog. No, what else? I can't remember. Not helping me. They're gonna pay. I hate them. Everyone's gonna pay who's allowing this to happen. I can't even remember, and they're just letting it happen even though I don't fucking remember. Okay, no problem. I don't remember what I was saying. What was I saying? What the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, about the Russian women. Yeah, so classically, once you earn the thing, and you kind of half earn it, but it's easy to earn. You see, they don't make it hard for you to earn, because that's also ungivingness, which is the opposite of yin. So you have to earn it, but number one, it's an easy earn, and number two, you'll never lose it after that. Oh wow, what a beautiful blessing in this life. You see, that's what makes a man feel good. That's like, there you go, like that's the waters of life. That's being brought to an oasis and you're hydrated forever. In the dignity transactional field, they dignify you correctly. A fucked up person doesn't dignify other people. That's the difference. So as I now make my point, the only thing that a sin is energetically in the substantive sense is taking away from someone after you've given. The retraction mechanism. Retraction mechanism is sin. The only time you're allowed to retract after you've extended, secure the understanding of the person who you're retracting from. So first you go, imagine first you just take away a cookie from somebody. Hey, what the fuck? Or you're walking down the neighborhood. You know, one lady who used to say hi to you all the time no longer says hi to you for no reason that you could discern. On the face of it, is she sinning? Yes. It's a sin against you. A sin means a transgression against you, a trespass against you. Trespass against what? Your dignity. But down the other block, there's also a woman. She never said hi to you. And so today, she also didn't say hi to you. Yeah, so? Well, you got the same end effect. There's two women, neither of them said hi to you. Right, but which one are you mad at? The first or the second? Ah, exactly. So the ultimate sin of life is never retract. And now there's only one situation in which you're allowed to retract. It's when the other person does an actual offense against you first. In which case, your retraction of them isn't sin in itself. It's not an offense in itself. It's the correct displacement measuring and balancing of what they did to you that you now are setting for them. Because ultimately, if they're unrepentant in it, they will be cutting themselves off from you. But whose fault is that? Their fault. They chose and signified and agreed to get cut off on the fact of them not treating you properly to begin with. You see that? This part is very, very important to understand. And actually this is a perfect loop around, because this brings me around to exactly what I wanted to cover in the beginning when I started recording these things today on this video set. Let's bring up to mind, I might as well show it on the screen, but maybe not. You've seen it already, I think, so just recall it to mind, because we're all supposed to be experts on this by now. Here's the ultimate karmic principle. There's only one case in all of the karmic, energetic, transactional planes rule set that you can legally, lawfully, properly retract what you've given already extended out to someone, such that you are now, you know, you're only allowed to click up. You can never click down, is the general rule, right? Because anything else would constitute sin. Clicking back down is to a lower level is a sin. You're only allowed to ostracize someone from your life by functionally cutting them off, or giving them any lower degree of relation than you used to give at any point, is you cutting them off unjustly. Right. It's only just if they offended against you first. That's the key, that's the thing. Some people want to believe in a twisted version of God's law. It's Satan actually's law. You don't realize it's a twist, that it's Satan's, but what does God's law actually look like? Well, we cover that. But what do some people twistedly believe? They say, oh, number one, Jesus dropped the charges, so if you ever do anything that's bad, you're still immune from being held to account. So if I did anything bad against you, you should just let it go. Forgive it or forget it. Otherwise, you cannot just hold me to account. No. Right, so obviously that doesn't work. Why? Because number one, Jesus spoke to numerous classes of people. So in life, you have rebukes that are happening because somebody did a wrong. All right? When that happens, there's two classes of people. There's those who are unjustly wronged, who are now rightly engaging in rebuke. Of course they are, because their dignity was just violated, so they naturally want to go, hey, what the hell? Okay? The second class is that group of people who did the wrong, who are now getting accused back on account of the first offense that they did. Okay? Now, was the bad, twisted human tendency to deny, 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 and to fight and to defend and all that. Okay? Some people, particularly those who belong to the second class, the class of people who are doing the wrongs, they want to operate out of both sides, where they say from the one side, oh, you know, maybe this stuff is nice or whatever. No, really what they like is, I think Jesus dropped the charges, so get away from me. You don't have to be so mean to me. Oh, you're bad if you're mean to me. No. Here's how you tell what the real law is. Christ never addressed the second class of wrongdoers and said, for those of you who have done the wrong, may you know that you are entitled to coming into possession of the free forgiveness that the other person must give you. So therefore, when anyone accuses you of the wrongdoing, just turn to them and defiantly say, God forgave me and Jesus forgave me. Jesus would say, no, I have nothing to do with that. 3 principles. Number 1, from one part of the story, somebody turns to him and says, hey, my brother did so and such a thing wrong, or the inheritance was given unevenly. You know, say something to my brother so that you fix him. Jesus didn't say, yes, that's right, I fucking made it all happen, and now I will fucking enforce how you should be listening to when I said that the debt is forgiven. No. He said, dude, who the hell made me master over your business and your affairs? You and him work it out properly. You rebuke him. And then when he defaults on that, you get your respective witnesses, and then you bring it up to me. Don't just sit here and slander your brother and expect a magic enforcement. That's not going to happen. I'm not here to put my way into anyone else's spheres automatically. You need to work it up from your own internal buildings. You see, number 1. Number 2, when addressing the class of people who are wrongdoers, again, he never said, yeah, just insist that you should be forgiven. No, because it's not your place to make the claim, because you have unclean hands. Christ never, in one place in the Bible, he never said, you who have done wrong, just know that keep bugging the ones who expect an apology from you and say you don't need to give them one because Christ forgave you. That makes no sense, and it never will. He only said, agree with your adversary quickly before they put your ass into more karmic prison. Remember that? So that's the instruction for the wrongdoer. He never backs the wrongdoer. And the other place, the third place, he says, Matthew 18, he says, if your brother doesn't hear you, you're going to be rebuking him now. And then all you witnesses will be establishing that what he did wrong is wrong. And then you apply the law, and then you ostracize him. By that, he declared that what? The second class of people deserve what? Freedom and magic forgiveness, or ostracization? He said you're ostracized, which means you're cut off from the people. Okay, so I'm pointing to 3 places that clearly state the law. But, you know, you believe that I have challengers who come out at me and try to contradict what I say? If people have admitted that my understanding of the law is better, who are you to come at me to try to improve my understanding? It doesn't work that way. You see that? You can't say both, yours is, you're very understanding, not much better than mine, and then later try to grasp at fucking straws. Oh, look, maybe Jesus forgave my sins. It doesn't work that way. Because the last part of the Bible that I want to quote, the 4th source, is that he addressed the second class of people, the wrongdoers. He said, if you come to the altar and there you remember that your brother has something against you, get away from the altar. Do not stand there. Remove yourself. First, you must go be reconciled with your brother. Then God permits you to come back and interface with him. Stated another way, God doesn't want to hear from you and will not hear you until you, for as long as you have a karmic claimant at the peer level here who says you've done wrong against them and they're actually right, you're cut off immediately, and you stay cut off. It doesn't matter how many times you try to reapproach the altar of God, physically, metaphysically, figuratively speaking. Doesn't matter. You're going to be cut off and stay cut off. It's all of it is as if it's without effect. But anything the other person will say, they will have effect. Because you're told that you're not allowed to continue receiving God's grace while you're still in the state of sin. But that's consistent with the Catholic Church's teachings too. The only problem is there's a doctrine where you could go to a father and you get magic forgiveness. That goes against what Jesus Christ said. Therefore, anything that church says is heretical. Break away from the church. That church is not working for you. If they put a doctrine that says the Father can magically forgive you, unless you look, I hope they have something more specific placed there to indicate that, maybe somewhere in the catechism or I don't know what, where they say, actually, you really should be getting the forgiveness first from the peer level person. Because I'll tell you something, the Jewish tradition has it completely right. The Jewish tradition is completely right. There's no fucking it up there in that way. When they say you approach Yom Kippur, you get released from the debts of sin where you make it up with the other person directly first. Never you're going to get a free. Jesus said the same thing. He was a Jew. He didn't make it a new thing because that wouldn't make sense. Start getting it. So these people wonder, they're wrongdoers, and they want to go, I don't know, I just want to magically just shrug my shoulders and spin around in a circle 3 times and just go, ta-da, everything's fine now, right? No, you're still in a karmic torture wheel because you didn't really repent and beg. Not God. The feet of the person you hurt is where you fucking will be crying. That's the only place you belong now. God says, what, you want to come to my altar to interact with me? No. I'm pointing you there. That's where you go first. You get it? 4 places. So don't get it twisted. All right? Now, when there's quotes in the Bible that says, don't judge your neighbor, don't judge it. You know what that means? It means, number 1, don't judge in a manner that's hypocritical. That is, don't judge when you yourself have done the guilty thing. This of the same kind or a similar class of kind. Number 2, don't judge where it's not your business. So if your neighbor hits his wife, can you sue your neighbor? No, legally. Why? Because you don't have jurisdiction. Maybe the wife can sue her husband. But she wouldn't, obviously, because yin gives grace. So they should just internally resolve it in some sensible way. But the point is this. You definitely don't have a claim because you're not a party to it. So when we talk about other people and gossip and make judgments on them like, I heard Bob is very bad who lives down there. That's the judgment that is forbidden by the Bible. Don't judge other people / condemn / criticize other people where you don't have jurisdiction. What gives people jurisdiction to judge you? When you are the victim yourself, you have the jurisdiction to judge the wrongdoer who affected you directly. And then if you don't take responsibility, Christ says in Matthew 18, the jurisdiction extends to witnesses. And then once the witness established that it's more than just hearsay, that the one person claimed you did it wrong. No, multiple sets of eyes all agree you did wrong. Now we're not only allowed to, we're commanded. It would be a sin if we didn't tell the whole public about it. You see? And now the whole public has jurisdiction over your affairs. Where when we talk about you as a wrongdoer, that's not gossip, nor is it slander. That's just called, because it's verified by the witness. That's why the witness is key. The witness is like a functional jury or judge in that regard. We're all agreeing we're seeing the same thing, right, guys? Yes. It clicks into being. Clicks into correct action. Because God says, or Christ says, Because where two or more of you are gathered together to see and behold the same thing, that's where I am in the spirit, or that's where God is in the spirit, because one person's claims are hearsay, but two people who agree in conjunction and corroborate cause karmic power to come against you. So you better be careful, wrongdoers, because if multiple people come against you after they've talked to you directly, but you've denied them, then they come together and they agree that you did wrong and you still deny them, then for the first time it's karmically allowed that you could be talked about publicly, and that's not gossip. That's just you getting correct karma back to hurt yourself the way you're supposed to be in pain. That's good. Till you submit finally and tap out from the pain of what you decided to put yourself through by refusing the actual victims the repentance that they deserve. I don't know how many times I could repeat the same things in one way, slightly different way, in a slightly different way. It's like we're talking to a fucking wall, but I hope not. It just keeps looking like that. I don't know why. It cannot literally be any more humanly obvious than the way I've just... if any human being could be put through all this to listen and still not get it, you have an IQ of 2. You're retarded. Alright, so continuing on. Eventually, my mother was brought to a place of mind where she agreed to do a meeting. Now, this is 7 months about too late. And yet, what could we do? If she wants to sit, then we owe her to meet and agree to sit, so long as she doesn't do anything wrong from there, because this is a new place of coming back, where if she shows to be repentant, good. Well, guess what? One Sunday, about a couple weeks ago from the time of this recording, but it's taken me weeks and weeks to catch up to this point in the narrative, she sat down with us. Prior to that, I demanded that Anthony make and find some kind of, make some pronouncement or finding that, like, look, my mom is obviously in the wrong. You see that, right? I would even say that my friend Anthony, as good and as much integrity as he has, he might have been overprotective of my mom in this situation, by right, compared to what the rights would be of the parties respectively. He was over hesitant to just flat out call it down that direction. So, I mean, I understood his position, because he wanted to be not just careful, but extra careful. So I wasn't really mad at him, but it had us prolong a lot of our time with this, because I was saying a lot, making clear a lot of things. And Anthony was like, yes, and I still want to see from the horse's mouth herself what the deal is. And I said, okay, if you really want to see with your own eyes, then it might take a longer while, but hopefully you'll get to see, and then you'll see for yourself what we're dealing with. Okay. So he saw with his own eyes first. What happened? If I could summarize what happened, and I think I might interject somewhere in these recordings Anthony's version and summary of what happened at the meeting, because number one, I was 50-50 on whether or not it should be recorded when we finally sat down for the in-person conversation. In hindsight, I should have decided to record it, and probably, almost certainly, as a policy for the future, I may record anything that happens from now on out. Because I've been drawn to see how things are going. You see? So, the more you see with your own eyes, the more you will figure out what the right course of action is. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't recorded that way, so well, maybe she recorded it, and probably she was pretending that she didn't record it. Who the hell knows? Debtors and wrongdoers do all sorts of weird things. When they misthink in one way, you don't just misthink in one way. How you do anything is how you do everything. Okay? How you do one part of life is how you do all parts of life. Because how you do anything is all parts of life or subfractals of all your other parts of life. So, You see? That tends to really be the case in a lot of ways. Anyway, I'm going to link in what Anthony says about it. He'll give a short summary of what he understood, or maybe we'll record a mutual conversation, whether a phone one or a live one, and make it a fuller thing. Also, sometimes I have a problem with words. Since I had brain damage and neural dysfunction for 2+ years now, that's a more serious level than the neural dysfunction I had prior to 2 years ago, which was also present still for years. I was able to talk better back then. I could talk even less now, so I have to like try to access brain words in 8 different ways to try to get a sentence said, but it's not said the best way. It's very funny. You have no idea what the internal brain wiring struggles are just to get the form out here that looks, it almost looks mostly okay, but it's not quite the same, and really it's not. So sometimes it helps when I'm talking in conjunction with other people is how we really see it, because the prompts will help me move right. But I have a harder time self-prompting in the right way because there's structural limitations now. It's harder for me. But just off the cuff, to summarize what happened, we sat down and my mom shockingly seemed very easygoing and understanding and sympathetic. Almost too easygoing and sympathetic. If you didn't know my mom any better, you would think, oh, this lady, we've been talking bad about her. Oh, it seems so fine and nice. Yeah, but not really fine and nice. And good thing that eventually afterwards it was just clearly seen what kind of person they are. But regardless, during the meeting, she seemed to, number one, admit that there was essentially no, by Anthony and mine's findings, there's no valid reason for her to do some of the more egregious things she did that have to do with the date of Sunday, October 9th itself. We came to agree that it was improper and not right for her to have acted the way she did, starting from how she treated me in the phone call and moving into her decision to call the cops. We didn't even begin to discuss the finer details or the specific counts, so to speak, regarding, and what about her use of the keys, letting the cops in my apartment when I had locked doors? What about every single one of the other, 687 freaking offenses? We only like covered 1 or 2. So at this rate, we would be sitting down every weekend for a year and a half before we covered it all. You see? But she kind of tried to just be like, well, number one, I'm sorry for this and that. So we were kind of like, okay. Anthony also realized by that, because he was looking for a deeper explanation, he wanted to see live from her whether or not there'd be something to explain what the hell happened. Because on its face, Anthony was like, yeah, if I find out nothing new, then what happened to you is total bullshit. I said, okay, well, you're not going to find out anything new. He said, I don't know that yet. Let me really see it for myself. Then he saw it for himself. Then he's like starting to hint to her, okay, well then in that case, I think he was almost even surprised a little bit. I really was like, really, in this case, Barbara, you're like, that wasn't fully right. You're kind of wrong. Although he was gentle in the way he was representing these things. Maybe even a little too gentle. But regardless, it appeared as though my mom was willing to talk things out. By the end of the first meeting, she said, look, I commit to meeting with you guys for the purpose that we've created every week. So there will be no problem with that. We are like, wow, that's amazing. What else was discussed during this meeting? She said, look, you're saying that I might have narcissistic tendencies, but this I don't understand at all. That was almost surprising to me. I was like, you don't understand that? I didn't expect to hear that. But of course that's consistent because narcissists can't perceive their own color blindness, so to speak. So in hindsight, actually, yeah, that would make perfect sense. If she's a narcissist, she would really have no clue, but also by instinct try to act nice, extra nice, and pretend like, oh, look, see how nice I'm being? I'm the farthest thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, when Solomon, wise King Solomon, was sitting there judging 2 women, one of them had a dead baby, one of them had a live baby. All right, before we proceed to the latter portion of this video, which has to do with an in-depth analysis of whether the person in question, because essentially my mom questions our assertions that she may be a narcissist, or at least not formally diagnosing like a doctor would, but we could still say in the substantive sense, outside of the manner of proper diagnostic form, whether someone has the informal tendencies and traits associated with that general appearance of narcissistic qualities. There's nothing wrong with implying that whatsoever, if such an implication is not unreasonable. All right? Now, or we'll do that later. First, I want to just cover a couple points. You see, earlier where my mom brought up in her text to Anthony, which he found to be so ridiculous that he just had to share them with me, about how, listen, okay, don't judge lest you be judged. And by the way, you should forgive so that you're forgiven. Well, just bring into mind the substantive message, and really the message of form as well, in that chief Christian prayer, for example, the Our Father. It says, forgive us our debts, or forgive us our trespasses, or forgive our offenses as we forgive those who trespass against us. What's the principle behind that? The universe and God and all the people in it, which are in essence, from your perspective, kind of one and the same thing, right? Everything outside of you is the matrix's operations on you. We're all a part of God as we enact upon each other. Yeah? Now, in essence, when the general principle back of that is the universal / godly principle that she tries to invoke there, but to no avail, it works against her and not for her. That's how smart people are when they're women. They'll raise ideas and claims that actually work against them when you look at it with proper clear eyes. Embarrassing. But that's exactly why you shouldn't have even bothered to try in the first place. Did my mother not admit that I was clearly superior to her in these matters? Well, I can't be both superior and liable to correction by you. Nah. You see that? I'm not 10. I'm not stupid. If I'm an adult brain with a man brain, I'm seeing better than you. That's for fucking $1,000,000% sure. Anyone would agree who's looking in and seeing who's making more sense here. Obviously. But anyway, all right, that principle is you will merit forgiveness by the world. You will merit that grace, that easy accounting system, that free, super easy mode in life deal when you give easy mode to other people. When you give a free grace to other people and the free, easy forgiveness. If and only if. If and only if. That's the principle God brings down onto us, which is the correct principle. So, my mom wants to invoke this now. Yes, don't hold me in... By the way, two different things. First of all, she's saying I'm a liar about her being a narcissist, which makes no sense. But the second thing, which she's trying to join in, obviously by logic, those two things are not related. That's what was clearly established by us. That's obvious. But she wants to relate it so that, also, by the way, not only he's a liar, so therefore we won't meet if he doesn't change the videos or take him down. Also, don't judge me. You see, because that's the real substance. It's not about whether or not I called her a narcissist. It's about, because she's trying to speak out of both sides of her mouth again. It's, they call me a narcissist, but also, don't judge me. And Jesus says I shouldn't be judged. No, that's not what he said. That's not what he said at all. We clarified that already many times. But here's the ultimate irony. Nevertheless, if you as that claimant had actually acted consistent with that policy of life from God, the free forgiveness policy, what did he say? What did he promise? He said, yeah. Oh, you want easy forgiveness? Okay. When you forgive everyone else freely and easily, and you've demonstrated a free, loving, forgiving attitude to them, that's when you will, that's the first moment that you will merit the free, easy, and loving forgiveness attitude back. Okay. So go back 7 months, 8 months. You see, while we were sitting in that first meeting, we immediately came to the conclusion that the entire thing that happened was baseless. And she was not in the right to act the way she did. Once we uncover that one little stone and turn that one little stone, every other stone in the whole structure starts to inwardly collapse. Therefore, it makes it such that 7 months of not talking to her own son automatically, immediately becomes unjustifiable and unjustified and indefensible. Perhaps it was my mom's subconscious mind that realized this. So she said, well, instead of me sitting there laying down and taking it, I'm going to fight and defend and argue and make all the problems I possibly can. That seems to be the spirit and the subconscious motivation behind her idea to, falsely frame staging a new event that's not really event. Oh, he said I'm a narcissist. Bad, Johnny. Now I will take control again. No, you lost control the moment you did the first original sin, which was a long time ago. That's why you never got it back. Because God says it's the first sin you make, until you repent, the debt hangs on you like a chain around your collar. You're a slave to God and to the ones you hurt, who mutually hold the handle together on you. Doesn't matter who you are, even if you're a parent. Made that clear. It's actually more severe of a crime when you falsely rule over your kids. Why? Because you as a parent have the obligation to do the best job, because they get it from you and copy you. So if a neighbor gives them evil, they can defend from it and be okay. If you demonstrate evil, the negative impact of that on their lives is so much worse that the karmic punishment for you daring to do that is so much worse than if anyone else had done the same thing to them. You see that? That's exactly right. So let's get it clear. If my mom wants free, easy accounting now to get the free forgiveness, okay, well then let us go back to see if she deserves it, right? Grace for grace is how it's merited. So grace should originate in yin anyway. But regardless, let's go back. Okay. If she would adopt the free forgiveness policy from her own then first, such that she would then merit it later if there's any issue that I should then be like freely, easily forgiving to her, let's see how she acted. Well, she calls the cops on me. For what? For yelling in my own house at her through the phone. Okay, so what? Good. But I still get taken against my will for a week. What would a regular mother do? Even if all that crazy stuff happened. Let's say the moment after that part happened, she just kind of regains herself and she goes back to being a normal mother. So now, what would a normal mother do? But see, non-normal mothers stay non-normal. That's the problem. That's the problem. You see that? Well, let's say it's a normal mother now. If you're in the shoes of a person who's the mother of the son who, because of you and some moment of non-thinking, you just sent him off to the hospital and now he's there for several days and you don't know what's going on. The doctors can't call that mother without my permission anyway. So they're not allowed to reach her beyond the emergency room setting, which is just the initial setting when I first come in to make contact with that hospital. So she's not hearing anything from the hospital. Now it's a few days. She doesn't know if her own son is okay or what's going on. You think a normal mom would call that hospital and try to get in contact with the son, right? Do you know how many times she tried to reach out? 0. 0. And after several days of me being there, I forgot how many days it was. I don't remember if it was... Yeah, I'm starting to forget more actually, which is not good. Pretty sure I might have been there for, yeah, a little over a week, I'd say. You see, here's the thing. And then I come home, and how we both have separate residences, but in the same building. I give her my one duty call by making it clear I'm reaching out to her as the son who just got out, and she doesn't pick up the phone. Okay. Now you as a mom have a decision there. If you're a normal mom, what would you be doing? Oh, my son, he's back from the thing. Oh, let me, knock on the door. Oh, okay, I'm so sorry about everything that happened. I don't know what was going on. No, I'm just happy that you're okay. I'm just happy to see you, that you're back. You understand that? What happened? Only a sicko is lacking that love instinct that you have to go see your son, because not seeing him for a week would kill you inside. What the fuck? No. You know what happened? Nothing. I got no call back. And instead she just starts talking to Anthony directly in a manner that I mentioned already previously. Not the first time either, just direct slander at me. This time it was, he's violent, where I later clarified, no, it's not violence, and he agreed. He said it's irresponsible and incorrect and immoral for her to characterize what you did as violent. So therefore you're falsely stating things to him. So that's an offense. So now you pay karmic price. I say, God invoked the punishment of her misspeaking back onto her. He says, yes, sir. Because he always supports those who are right against those who are wrong. But let's just look at what she did. Did she come to my door? No. Did she give me free forgiveness? If she wanted to make up a fake idea that I did something offensive against her, which I didn't, and Anthony agrees, after sitting down in our first meeting, he found for me in this substantively. He said, as far as he impliedly represented to me, as far as I could tell, I'm not quoting him directly, but it appears to me that his position is that of, well, yeah, I can't see that you did any particular thing that's totally wrong and totally your fault, in your court, and it's your bad. That didn't happen anywhere in the chain of events there. Okay. So number one, not only did the mom falsely make up a slant against me, where in hindsight later we see, as we look back, it was a false slant. No, bad. Mom will pay karmic price for that too. So it all piles up, the weight piles up on her neck. At what point until she karmically cannot breathe anymore? At what point? It's a very important question to ask. So, but regardless, even if she made a false slant and staged and framed a false offense of mine, apparently that's not real, regardless, if your own delusional mind makes you believe that your son did an offense, nevertheless, if you have the easy, free, forgiving attitude, then you would have freely, easily forgiven. And by the time I would have gotten back from the hospital, it would have been the, oh, my son, oh, we're just happy to see you. We're just happy to see you. Nothing that you did wrong or not wrong doesn't matter. True grace is I love you anyway. Which I don't believe my mom does at all. And if you don't understand that this is truly the truth and the teaching from the Bible, let's go examine. But tax collectors and sinners were approaching to hear Christ. And the scribes and Pharisees were complaining. And they were saying, this one receives sinners and he eats with them. To try to mock what Jesus was doing. So then Yeshua, or Christ, or Jesus, told them in response to this parable. What man among you has 100 sheep, and if one of them should be lost, wouldn't leave the other 99 in the wilderness by his own shepherd, good person instincts, and go seek that one which was lost until he would find it? And whether he has found it, and whenever he has found it, he rejoices and carries it on his shoulder. That's right. And he comes to his house and he calls his friends and neighbors and says to them, I found my sheep, I found my sheep. That's exactly right. That's the substantive law. I say to you, therefore, there shall be joy like this in heaven over one sinner who returns home. Naturally. More than over 99 righteous ones who don't need a homecoming celebration. Where was my homecoming celebration? You don't get it. It doesn't matter. And by the way, he uses this as an example of someone who did wrong, but then kind of at least halfway starts coming around. So again, the coming around part is necessary. You see? And he goes on, and who is the woman who has 10 quarter shekels, loses one of them? Doesn't she light a lamp and sweep that house and look for it carefully everywhere for that little bit until she finally finds it? And when she does, and she happy as hell? Yeah. I say to you that there will be joy like that before the angels of God over one sinner who returns home and finally gets it right. That's why we're doing all this, Barbara Winslow. Get it right finally. And Yeshua said to them again, this is the story that's known as the prodigal son story from the Bible, kind of well known. And Yeshua said to them again, listen, one man has 2 sons. And his younger son said to him, my father, give me the portion that befalls me from your estate. Then he, as an inheritance, like early. So then he divided to them his wealth. And after a few days, his younger son gathered everything that was coming to him, money-wise, and then he went off to a distant country. And there he squandered his wealth while living wastefully. And when he had spent everything that he had, there was a great famine in that country, and he began to be wanting. And he joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to a field to herd pigs. And he longed to fill his belly from the carob pods that the pigs were eating, and no man was giving anything to him, unfortunately. When he came to himself, he said, "Now how many hired servants are in my own father's house, who have plenteous bread for themselves, and here I am, dying with hunger." That's true. In a sense, if your family is at a status, and then even if your son's doing not right, if he's being neglected and kept down to suffer like this, where you're not necessarily the victim, and even if you are, there's a certain grace that befalls your children more so than anybody else, and that's the point of the story. That's why he's using an example with children who belong to their parents, but nevertheless the parents are going to be shown to exemplify the particular principle here. And it's not the other way around, by the way. Make that clear. So my mom's looking for some kind of easy grace from me, and no, you got it the wrong direction. You're not getting it. In multiple ways, you're misangling it. Stop doing bad assessment. Your mental powers are inferior. Stop it. And your spirit is inferior, too, in its spiritual capacity. It's really, I'm so sorry to say, but you're not getting it. You're just not getting it because you're not carrying the substantive spirit of love that you're supposed to for your son. So there's a big penalty for that. 10 times heavier than anything of form. Anyway, he rises and goes to the father and says to him, "My father, I have sinned towards heaven and before you." Now mind you, these are not sins against that person, but indirectly they're sins that he did with respect to how he was living. He was missing the mark, so to speak. So he repents for this, and he says, "Look, now I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me as some low person, as one of your hired servants." And rising, he came to his father, and while he was still distant, the father saw him and was moved with compassion for him. And he, not even the mother, we're talking about the father here, was moved with compassion for him, and he ran and fell on his neck, and he kissed him. And his son said to him, "My father, I've sinned towards heaven and before you. I'm not worthy that I should be called your son." But his father said to his servants, "Bring the best robe and clothe him, and put the rings and beautiful jewelry and garments on his hands, and put shoes on him, and bring and kill the best fattened ox that we have. Let us eat and celebrate. Because this, my son, who was dead, he's walked back up to us, and he is alive. He was lost, and now he is found by us. That we even have our son physically to receive him, that he's even here, is a good day. That we should cherish this day. Because tomorrow he might not be here, and you don't even know. You waste every moment, every day that you have with your son when he's alive. You as a parent, to turn your back on that son and not greet him and treat him like the father, even a father, a yang, strict, supposed to be ruthless man. No, even the parents are supposed to be yin with respect to the children. This law of Christ is teaching you he's not kidding. You in the natural world and by the godly paradigm fall to only one relation. It's to just you love your children unconditionally, exactly like this. He didn't use this parable to teach you something new. Not even the people of that time. He was using this parable to explain something that was already obvious to everybody, because everybody knew that this is the obvious truth of every single person anywhere. It would happen like this. There'd be nothing extra. Everybody knows, and no matter what, your parents will always treat you well. That's true. All the Jews were like, yes. All the Israelites were like, yes. We kind of see your point, because we can't argue, because we all know that this is what would happen. So why are you breaking it? What are you doing? Demented. It's not working, huh? And they began to celebrate, it says. But his older son was in the field. Maybe he was related to Barbara Winslow. Because his mentality, look at this, sick one. And as he came, he approached the house, and he heard the sound of many people singing. He called one of the boys, and he asked him, "What is this?" And he said to him, "Oh, your brothers come home. Your fathers killed the best ox, and we all received them well." And that other brother, he was angry, and he did not want to enter. See? And his father went out pleading with him, saying, "Listen, I'm a normally wired empath, so we're here to love each other, remember? But this one, who's a narcissist or cluster B type personality, they had the same dysfunctions back then as we do now. Same neurology gets inherited. He didn't understand that. He only knew, why him? Why not me? Why, Shoot yourselves. If all cluster B people killed themselves, the world would run perfect after that. You don't get it. You don't get that part. But he said to his father, "Behold, I have served you for many years of servitude. I didn't do bad." Actually, he does bad all the time. Barbara does bad. So let me just stick with the example because it's the correct example. This brother here has never transgressed the commandments of the Father. You never gave me a goat that I may celebrate with my friends, but not even a goat. Right, but when this your son, who's wasted your money with whores, has come back, you kill for him the fattest ox we have? And his father said to him, "Yeah, dumbass, that's how life goes. You're supposed to love each other and celebrate when you come back." You see, that's exactly the point you're missing. So my mom here is like this brother instead of acting like this father. So, but which one is acting correctly and which one's acting incorrectly? In a matter that's right for the context or wrong for the context? Exactly. Now you see. I came home from a week of being in the fucking mental hospital against my will. And I call my mom. Where the hell was my homecoming? Huh? Where was my easy grace for a wrongdoing that I never actually did? So you see, when my mom carries it out this way, it's actually two offenses rolled into one. It's number one, I'm going to make a fake slant and then take it seriously. And then Christ says you're only allowed to ostracize someone in step 4 of the 4-step protocol of rebuke after you've gone through steps 1 through 3. So this is another part that I forgot to explicitly mention, but this is very important. I was deprived of due process prior to being cut off from my own family for 7 months. Do you understand the difference? The due process is, well, if the mom's going to make a slant, well, you're not, no person, not a mom or a son or a brother or sister or a neighbor or any man in the nation can make a slant against someone such as to cut them off without first turning to what? Step 2 protocol, which is get a witness, and then step 3, publicize it, and at each step still give the opportunity for the person to go and be heard and to reconcile at every interloping step. No, my mom just went from step 0 straight to step 4, skipping steps 1 and 2 and 3. So she treated me as if I was already a confirmed wrongdoer who needed to be cut off, without first ensuring through objective trial and objective facts and sitting together that it is in fact true. That's why God tells you to get steps 2 and 3 and 4. To not only make sure that they're wrong, but to also make sure that you're not the one who's wrong and blind. So you violated 3 things in one. Number 1, you denied me the steps 1 and 2 and 3. You just went straight to cutting me off. That's a sin. You're not allowed to do that to anybody. That's an offense on its face. Step 2 is that where you owe as a forgiving thing, God says, forgive and you will be forgiven. Did you forgive me? Did you make a free thing? I called my mom. She never came to see me for 7 months. And then now she wants to bicker back and forth and then say, what? You're supposed to forgive me for free. If we realized I was the one wrong, well, then you should forgive me easily now. Well, I would say, yes. If you had forgiven me easily back then, I would have forgiven you easily now. But because you did not forgive me easily, but you put me through 7 months of torture for not a good reason, Now do you think you merit a free, easy forgiveness? No, because with the measure that you measured unto me, it will be measured back out unto you. Christ is good. You lose. All right, and let's get one thing straight additionally. That example there reinforces yet again how, in the correct paradigm, even in situations where you're supposed to be free and easy and giving, it has to happen in a setting where the wrongdoer, who really is the established wrongdoer, where it's admitted or it's otherwise found through proper trial, through proper steps 1 through 3 and 4. You can't just one person like your God decide someone's wrong and now you get to treat him like he's wrong. Never. Doesn't work that way, but that's already established. So you're wrong for that also. But the other thing is, the problem is, see, it makes it very clear here. Even when that son got the good treatment, the person in this particular example could be anybody in any direction of interaction or relation whatsoever. It has to be because in a situation where he's not being obstinate. Okay? But my mother's being obstinate against us. She's being a debtor, live refusal, live fighting. But at the same time saying, yeah, no, give me easy forgiveness. Just forgive me. Jesus says forgive me. No, he doesn't. Not while you're arguing still. You're not allowed to claim a victory while you're a debtor. The courts of heaven never give victory to the who is acting like the debtor in the situation. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. But we made this clear already. All right, and now resuming, there's one additional issue as well that comes to mind. In fact, this is something that I wanted to bring up right at the moment that my mom's just spontaneously called for a sudden ending to the meeting that we were at the first meeting. This was actually something that was beforehand. I knew I wanted to mention this because this is a very important substantive issue of the whole dynamics and everything going on there. I didn't get to remember it until that very moment. And then as soon as I started speaking, I remember literally said, you know, Mom, you see, because one other important thing, and then she just, I have to go. All right, so it's like, it's funny, it just got cut off, when to me that was the most important thing I wanted to say probably that whole day. She has a real knack for turning against you at all the critical points instead of facilitating help and bridges and guidance with you, for you, around you, to help you. You see the opposite energy polarity. It's even almost instinctive. It's crazy how that is. So you'll always be exposed for the substantive energetic antagonism that you give your kid. That's the first fault from which all the other faults come from and stem from. Okay? But the original message was this. I wanted to say, is in addition to all the offenses at the level of form that are going on, and in addition to the issue, the substantive issue of like, well, it's all under the one substantive offense of being guilty of unloving behavior towards your own son. Unprodigal father-like behavior towards a prodigal son. Or anyone, or any yin parent especially. But there's one other issue I didn't touch upon as much. You have to understand, at the figurative and also metaphysical level, the father to a parent, whether the father to a child, whether the child is male or female child, son or daughter, doesn't matter. The father represents energetically not only the masculine portion of the Godhead, which is the primary portion of the Godhead in a sense, or the one that's active towards us at least. God is domino with respect to us. You see what I'm saying? As literally the word domino in Latin means God. Domination is God. You see? But here's the thing. The mother represents, or the father represents everyone who is. Now, another thing crosses my head at this point in time. You know, as I think back on that prodigal son parable or example shown in the Bible. It's very interesting how that father morally correctly treats that son of his when he comes back. Because ordinarily there's the yang gender, the male gender. From that gender is expected to be a kind of strict ruthlessness, where of those two parents, mommy would be the one who would give the unconditional love. Please, oh, come here, my son. But it's the father who either would be 50-50 or, in a more traditional sense, would reliably end up being the stricter and sterner of those two. Who would be the one who represents, now wait a minute. Oh, now boy, we gave you half of the inheritance. No, you fucked up. You can't just say you're sorry. You're going to have to atone. We're going to have to hold you to strict account. You're going to have to prove to us many things and all this crap. That's why Jesus used a father in that example. Because the point we're getting is that the mother would be nice no matter what, or should be. Only a real, truly twisted demon is anything other than what the parable prodigal son's father showed. If it would be a mother, it'd be guaranteed to be that way anyway if you're in a normal universe. But we're not in a normal universe anymore. But could you imagine if we took the spirit and essence of my own mother's approach and injected it into that example, what it would be like? You come here, I gave you half of your estate already. You will be punished. Nope, you fail. Everyone hates you. You broke the idea of what it's supposed to be. But Christ told you that, see? Even the father is welcoming his son. The mother for sure is welcoming the son. You see, you're not getting it. You're trying to be worse than what a father would be in a good family. What the fuck? None of this makes sense. You don't get it now? Let me discuss the importance regarding what we call the four-step process that's outlined in Matthew 18, where Christ says, reflecting really the proper Judeo. I think it's honestly more Judaic than Christian, to tell you the truth. Christians forgot it, actually. They don't apply it correctly. I think more in the Jewish culture and tradition is more of a mindfulness of this proper structure has been retained, implicit in the way that things are acted out correctly. Very interesting, see? But the best written summary of the process you'll find, ironically, nevertheless, is in a Christian source. As Christ was writing about it, talking about it. What did he say? Four-step process. Step 1, rebuke the person privately. Step 2, if they don't hear you, then you get a witness. Step 3, continue. If they still keep defaulting on you and refusing you, publicize the matter. Okay? Now, step 4, finally, is they didn't hear you by then, you finalize and confirm their full cutting off from the whole community. First, it's a disconnection between the two people themselves. If you're at the point where you need to get a third party involved, probably those two direct people that have the conflict between them aren't fit for full interaction. So you're kind of in a weird in-between phase of keeping arm's length, yet not fully confirming a righteousness, a full righteousness of the full cutting off from that person. Because after all, if you're an accuser and you're only at the place where you're not getting along between the other person because they're defending themselves, by the way, it might be the case that the one being accused is actually right and the accuser is wrong, which is why the whole piece about hypocrisy comes into play, or about being context blind. Very important, and that happens more than you would believe, people. Oh, trust me. Anyway, going back to the issue, I want to address a couple of things that were raised that Anthony notified me of, that my mom raised to him, because they're interesting subject matters for us to analyze. Number one, although I believe I covered this first part sufficiently, actually, in the recent portions. This is regarding what being judgmental about other people encompasses and means. That type of judgmentality or judginess that is prohibited, morally speaking. The gossipy and judginess. Those two things are interlinked. But let's separate them for a second and look at each side. Because you always see gossiping and you see the judginess that's carried on, which the gossiping mediated. First you got to find out about it by having it told. The telling about it and the hearing of it is immoral in itself, and then your reaction to it, which is to come into the judginess about the person about whom you're gossiping. That's a second part. It's a distinct offense, and they're attached to each other, sadly. The first part regarding or the first part about judginess, rather, in itself, it's a missing of the mark, or a sin. I use those terms interchangeably, as I've explained to other people in my life before, to Anthony in particular, and to others. So guys, substantively, a sin means nothing more than what the Greeks most well insightfully have termed, for this is what a sin means in their language. It's a missing of the mark. You've missed the mark somewhere if you've sinned. That means you've strayed, you didn't hit your optimal target with the optimal path. Right? What's a sin versus not a sin? So it's not a sin to ever hold anyone liable for anything. That's not what a sin is. Because in other places, all the traditions, Christian writings and all of the writings that they're based on or that came before them and everything that's come after them and the whole law structure of the world today, don't get it twisted. If you do a wrong, the party who you harmed you grant them the right to come after you. You see, but who granted them the jurisdiction to claim against you? You did, when you did the inconsiderate thing against them. See how that works? Christ said the same thing, and he said the very clear rules in Matthew 18 and in several other places that I've described in greater detail, where we made clear. So I ruled it out that anyone who comes around thinking that Christianity is a religion about don't make a claim, don't hold claims against people, and don't try to make a thing. It just act as if it never happened. That's never been Christianity. So don't get it twisted. It never has been. Alright, but the judginess that's prohibited is whenever you judge somebody in the third person. So if you say, oh, he's so much like this and that, she's so much like this and that, that's what's not allowed. What is allowed? You're allowed to say, you are such and such, you are such and such, and you're the one who has the jurisdiction, who's the party harmed, or by extension, jurisdiction was extended to you by you becoming a witness on the matter where the person who had the jurisdiction told you about it, because they tried to work it out first and they refused them. And so he doesn't have to sit there and be damned to hell forever on this earth, walking around, I'll never get right again. They'll always withhold from me the critical thing. And I have to just smile, right? No. He, for the millionth time, and I hope this is the last time I have to express this, for the last freaking time, is written that you're supposed to get them and solidify the claim and make sure the public record ultimately correctly holds and understands that, that person has done the wrong thing. Like, make no mistake about it. We can't talk to them anymore. Okay, so you can't have both. This is what, in 1984, it's what they call doublethink, and that book, 1984. Doublethink. It's, you can't, you could condemn people, but you can't condemn people. You see how you can't really believe both things at the same time if they're opposites, but this is what a broken woman's mind will tend to do sometimes, and even broken men's minds. Broken minds are what do this. So, no. Only one of those is true, and then you need to know case by case distinguish and know the law, the moral law, and everything else. Very important. Very important. All right, now next, what was I saying? Oh, I lost my train of thought here for a moment. Hold on. Yeah, so the judginess that is for other people where you don't have jurisdiction is what's morally not right and should be blocked. But a claimant who has the direct claim is supposed to proceed with condemnation. If you've done wrong, we need to hold you to account. That's always a law. Okay, next. What about the gossiping portion? So here's the problem. The claimant can judge, and the witness can affirm the judgment and certify that that judgment appears to be correct because the facts about which judgment is being passed regarding what the wrongdoer did, the witness certifies that that's what happened, and with the presumptive moral law that we have our working understanding of, really, when you get, that's why every man has the obligation to always learn. So your presumptive working obligation about what the right and wrong are should always be further and further refined. That's every grown man's obligation to do in this life. Eventually you become almost as a sage. When you get your wisdom high enough, you understand, you can always clearly see what is right, what is wrong. But if at the level of two regular lay people, so to speak, their application of the presumptive law is such that, yeah, it appears that person really did wrong. If we hold the things to be true as they seem to be, we jointly agree that that seems to be what happened. Okay, so what next? That's when you begin to do what? Step 3, which is turn to the community and the greater public, and you are morally free. Not only free, you are actually obligated. You have to publicize the matter. If you don't publicize it, you're breaking God's law. If you don't publicize it, you're sinning. Do you understand that? Okay, so I have to publicize it. That's my duty, my Judeo-Christian obligation under that moral law is to do that. Make no mistake. Now here's the thing. There's the role that a victim and a supporting witness, or there's one or two witnesses, there's the role that they will play in extending the truth about what happened and disseminating it out to the greater public. And then there's the greater public in its role in how it receives that information. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. When you look at it from the person who from the perspective of the person who is out there in the world, and all of a sudden he comes across this information, first of all, who gave it to him? Every person has a moral duty to not change their beliefs about facts, circumstances, or people unless it is non-hearsay information. Now, when it's hearsay on its face, it's one person who's told you something and they only say, oh, you know what, that person is bad and bad because they did such and such, and they give you no more of the facts. You see, in objective reality, it might be that that analysis is completely wrong, and it's completely wrong because there's a whole bunch of set of facts that actually in reality they exist, which are the facts that in objective reality is not the case, that person that was just gossiped about was wrong. But you don't know that, so you trust that the person who spoke to you is telling you the whole complete thing. Now, it could be that the person himself got a mistaken idea. So this is why every person in reality has a moral obligation. If you're going to hear something, you should only understand that the thing is being said, not that it is actually true. That's the distinguishment. If you actually sit there and come to believe the things that are said, oh, you're going to be spun into a spider web of illusions your whole life. It's not allowed. However, the question arises, can you make a presumptive belief? Because you see, it's also considered to be an offense. If two friends are hanging out, one of them tells the other, it could be an offense if the one who hears the thing takes it the wrong way and begins to challenge the truth of it outright. Why? Why is that a kind of subtle offense, a low-level offense, but still an offense potentially to the one who's speaking the gossip? Because even if it's gossip, you got to believe the one who's speaking might be so ignorant that he isn't aware that it's gossip. He thinks he's reporting proper facts, and moreover, that he believes he's entitled to report them.
I should go that way.
Remember, Defamation is the destruction of someone's reputation, regardless of whether or not it's true statements. The obligation, morally, therefore, is one to not speak badly about people, period. Not to speak falsehoods. See the difference? You're not justified for allowing or actively causing the degradation of someone's reputation simply because the thing is true. Except there's one exception to that. If the thing happens to be true, that alone isn't enough. Because the thing happens to be true, but the actual person affected may have decided not to conduct a rebuke and raise a claim and involve witnesses and certify the matter and cause it to become a legitimate, authenticated step 3 level within an authentic process. So guess what? Well, the purported victim in that circumstance, about which whom that supposed immorality affected, you cannot as a third party or beyond, you're just some person far out removed from those people, you can't talk badly and conclude where that original claimant never made the claim, because the claimant was in the position of being directly damaged by the supposed immorality, and yet that person was closer to the facts and the circumstances such that they decided not to raise the claim. If they didn't raise the claim and they let it go, or they otherwise resolved it, and that person forgive that other person, whether it's by forgiveness or by mercy or by grace, that the matter is closed now over there, just because it's true that it happened doesn't mean you get to talk about it, to now continue to allow the ripples to become cast out further and further, such that that person's reputation continues to be harmed. See the difference? The distinguishment is very important. Now, so like I said, it can be considered as an offense to tell something to someone where they have two things they need to juggle and balance. Number one, they want to be your friend, so they don't want to doubt the things you tell them, okay? But on the other hand, they have a loyalty to another member of the community or assembly or society or public who's the person being affected by the speech, where you don't actually have genuine first-hand or personal knowledge of the problem, nor do you necessarily have jurisdiction, nor do you have reasonable information or belief, because it's still uncorroborated and potentially incompetent hearsay statements with no level of proper evidence. It doesn't matter if there's evidence. The context is what matters, whether it should be said or should not be said. Evidence is only to determine the truth of a thing, not whether or not it's proper to apply that truth in a way that harms people. So, therefore, what obligation does one come into when hearing something that's said? Let's say I'm sitting out in the park with my friend Dan, and Dan tells me, "Hey, you know what? I heard that Bobby stole some things." Okay? Number one, I can't start arguing with Dan. Let me just start correcting you now and da-da-da-da-da. Alright? Even though technically that could be an offense. Let's say Bobby didn't actually steal some things, but our friend Dan mistakenly believed that it's true, so he just told me as if it's true. He thinks he's under a step 3 obligation, that we're conducting a step 3 process on somebody. We're actually not. Because the person who he supposedly stole from, there's some justifiable circumstance, and that person, there's no issue anymore, they resolved it or they forgave it. No, we're still talking about it like as if it happened and if it's real. No, that's bad, very bad. So yeah, it could be considered an offense that you're being brought to a place where you are expected to believe lower about somebody without the sufficient proof. Yeah, it's a subtle offense, but you know what? What obligation do we have when our friend Dan tells us this thing? First you say, oh, is that, just say, oh yeah? I say, yeah. Okay. You don't just say, okay, I understand, or okay, I accept, or okay, I believe this now. You can't let that happen. So the first thing you do is say, so this was part of a proper rebuke matter, where the person who was stolen from is confirmed that she has held him in wrongdoing on this. Very important. And if the answer is yes, then the next question has to be asked, because it's still hearsay. One person holding another person in wrongdoing is still hearsay. My mom holding me in wrong, such that 7 months she doesn't talk to me, is still hearsay, until you get a third human being to go next to my mom, look at it and say, yes, Barbara is correct. It is now certified. Until it's certified, you have vapor. So it's unethical for you to proceed against someone in a way that harms them. In fact, really, technically, you shouldn't be depriving connectivity with someone on a one-on-one level. Probably, I may have misspoken earlier. Really, it shouldn't be done until there's a step 3 confirmation, a step 2 confirmation, which is the third-party witness confirming. Very important. But now look, if Bobby stole from somebody and the victim of the theft actually didn't waive their right to rebuke, but did proceed with rebuke and held him to account of wrongdoing, and he denied. So if he didn't deny, it would have been a privately resolved matter, so we wouldn't be hearing about it ever. Otherwise, it would have been that victim who then engaged in revenge on Bobby, which is not proper either. That's also sinful, by talking about what he did, even though, after he dealt with the impact or received supposed forgiveness, and atoned properly. But hey, maybe sometimes atonement looks like allowing specific several people, perhaps each of them within a relative bound of confidence, to come into the awareness of such a thing. It's part of the process of repenting. That's up to the victim to decide, and for the wrongdoer who's in repentance to concede to. You see the importance? Now, when you're in the position where your friend Danny's telling you something like this, you want to ask, and the wrongdoer held them to account? Oh, I see. And then following that, did the just because a wrongdoer held them to account doesn't mean nothing. And then you say, and was there some third party who came in who looked at it, a witness of sorts, who agreed and affirmed and certified substantively that yes, that was what had happened? The answer should be yes. It was Susie. Susie came into knowledge of all the details and was the third party, mediator there, and looked at it all and determined that, Bobby fucked up. He really did steal. He really did do wrong. He was wrong. Oh, Susie agrees. The victim and Susie both agreed that Bobby is a thief. That's the first moment at which you're allowed to accept now the thing that was quote-unquote gossip. Now it's fair speak. It's not gossip. It's not immoral talk. It's you are correctly being told that the thief failed to repent for the problem, even when both the victim and Susie held him to account, where they both agreed that he was a thief, and he still denied wrongdoing. That's the first moment in which you're allowed to say, okay. All you're allowed to do is to come into the truth of your understanding of that situation, and to reconcile your understanding of the situation with what the objective truth is, to match them. That's it. You're allowed to uphold a judgment only at the level of considering that they did wrong. What does judgment not mean? Apart from taking away your free interaction with them, that is, you have the obligation to now treat them as a
Get him! Go! Ready!
what they call the tax gatherer as a heathen, which just basically means treat them as someone who deserves to be ostracized. who is someone who acted the wrong way and failed to adhere to the principles of morality under which we live. Very important. But you're not allowed to effectuate additional harms. You're not allowed to engage in retribution on your part or on the part of the victim in some spiritual way. That doesn't work. Apart from not dealing with them, not speaking to them, you're not allowed to actively actually do something to deprive them of something. See that? Their punishment is to treat them as if they're dead, but not to go ahead and do the killing yourself, so to speak. See the difference? And she's more worried about her son posting videos calling her a narcissist on a YouTube link. She's more worried about that than she is worried about the fact that she's losing a proper functioning relationship with her son. When a neurologically and neurocognitively affected adult son of a mother is left in his apartment to rot for 8 months plus now, with fucking mice and mouse shit everywhere and flies and fucking garbage everywhere rotting around him, and his mom lives in the same building and she is not helping in his life, in such a medically affected son's life. Only a mother who does not love her own son could be capable of not running to beg for the opportunity to help her own son in such a situation. Any normal, loving mother who has the normally functioning capacity to love her own children, the way 98% of mothers probably do, in a capacity that is sufficient enough to not be completely sick, a normal loving mother would be running out of instinct to go help her own son and child any way she can. Moreover, what we find interesting is wherever there is a mother and adult child dysfunction, whether it's child or adult child, 95% of the time or more, if it's between a mom and a child, that child is a daughter, is a female child. A mother is not going to have a dynamic with a improperly antagonistic dynamic with a male child. It goes against nature, as we pointed out many times already. This is not good. Whose fault is it, therefore, when a mom breaks against her own male son, when a female breaks against the male, when yin breaks against yang, by trying to be yang? Who's acting wrong? Very important. If a mother's prioritizing nonsense and her own idea of her own reputation in her own mind, listen, the YouTube video that she complains about hasn't even been sent to anybody and has like 2 views or 4 views, which are all me and Anthony and her. There's no real problem that's being complained about. Okay? Let me draw the analogy. As sad and as sick as it is for this to be said, or for this to be the case, rather, it's good that I'm saying it. As sad as it is that this is the case, or this is analogous to what this case looks like, it has to be said. We all know about how boyfriend-girlfriend relationships work. We've all been in them. Now, we all know how girls operate. It's an old saying, and it's true. It's the girl who chooses the guy, and not the guy who chooses the girl. It's always the girl who chooses the guy, not the other way around. That's what my Polish grandma at least used to say. But we know it's true as a yin and yang energetic property, and how they relate, sort of. Well, if you're a guy, now you know there's two types of modes that a girl can be in, okay? There's the mode where she's pre-chosen you, and by the way, when she's pre-chosen you, guys, you know what I'm talking about. Is there anything wrong in the world that you can do to get your girlfriend to not like you? Or to get the girl to not like you? No. It doesn't matter. If a girl has pre-chosen you that you are fine and acceptable and great for her, nothing you could do is going to fuck that up. Almost nothing. It changes, and funny enough, it's somewhat capricious, and yes, there's things you could do as a guy to mess it up. And there's things that a girl can do to mess it up. And then oftentimes, guess what? If a girl changes her mind, well, girls don't like taking responsibility. So she'll change her mind capriciously sometimes on her own. But then she'll make it look like it's you that did something. Ah, see the game? Or really, if she goes to check her own mind for real, she would confess. And I've actually had people say this to me, believe it or not. Where they really go in and check and then just confess like, you know what? Really, you're right. It's nothing you did. It was just, I just felt different. I just felt different. That's it. Ah, so that's you becoming your own God, see? But what's the problem there? It's that you think that you are morally entitled to treat people different based on how you feel. You're never allowed to do this in a morally frameworked universe and world. Not under God's law. That's immoral. And yet, funny enough, that's what happens. Think about it. Even a guy who might be into a girl, he'll treat her well. But if a guy doesn't like a girl, he will still not always completely treat her like crap. There's a kind of minimum standard that he won't go below of like, well, you're a basic human being, but I'm still going to treat you for the most part with some basic level of respect as a human being. But girls traditionally are known. We won't stoop. There's no lengths we'll stoop to. We'll abuse you if we feel like it. And for nothing, too. And for nothing. So let's get these different dynamics out of the way in terms of what regulates the behaviors of guys and girls, yin and yang. Because like I said, there's two different types of women or females, two different modes you can live in. Whether you've chosen a guy not for anything he did, but just because you decided to, you like him. Well, if you like him, there's nothing he could do that's wrong. But guess what? If you don't like him, what's the other truth? There's nothing he can do to redeem himself in your eyes. Isn't that also true? If a girl likes a guy, he could do the worst things in the world, and he can do even somewhat bad things around her, and even somewhat, to some limited extent, towards her. Maybe not even to a very limited extent. Especially traditionally, back in the old days, a girl really could take a lot of abuse and roll with the punches, and so to speak, and but not become affected. She'll treat him just about as good as she did yesterday. But if a girl's anti-chosen against him, she's not pre-chosen, anti-chosen for a particular guy. If the one excuse that she grasps for, like grasping for straws, so to speak, if she has one excuse and that excuse is not a legitimate excuse, it doesn't matter. There's gonna be another excuse that's gonna be it's right in the queue. It's right in the pipeline, and it's gonna be loaded up or invented and just. Now, if a girl is anti-chosen for a guy, or if a girl doesn't choose a guy, it doesn't matter if one excuse is there that he is able to resolve and address and eliminate functionally from being a valid excuse of hers as to why there's some problem. Doesn't matter. She already has. There's never going to be. You could never really escape it. There's always going to be a next level excuse than the next one that's she could invent. That's ready right at the tip of her mind to just blast onto you the next layer of bullshit. Because it's all done. Women begin with the end in mind. You understand? Men look to see what is there in actual objective reality and then base where we end up based on what the correct road is. There's differences. I mean, when we have goals, we pick the goal first, then we understand, we figure out the best way to get there. But women are different. Women are really, you decide what you feel first, then you, based on your feeling and where you want to end up, which is based on your feeling, then you'll let any path happen that's the straightest path there. It doesn't matter if it's through hell or fire or deep water or whatever. Okay? But now what's the limitation? You see, that's how girls are not supposed to be, really. In a moral framework where, you know, because this is how people are by nature, just like people can be base by nature, but if you take a good moral system, philosophical system, or really religious system, and apply it over as a guiding framework, people within civilization and societies and communities can change their structure and dynamics of behavior. So you go to a good community of good people who adhere to a certain way of living and a belief system, you could find that where maybe in the secular normal world a lot of girls will tend to be like that, and you'll see the ugliness of it everywhere. Well, you could go to places where you won't see much of that ugliness manifest at all because it got worn out of the persona. Just like weeds, if you don't tend the garden, every garden will grow weeds at the proportion that you'll naturally see it. So what do you do in life? Well, you have the ability as the cultivator to come in, cut the weeds out. If you maintain your lawn and maintain your grass, you won't have weeds. So look, now magically you're an exception. So therefore the rule is, don't just bow to the base aspect of nature, which is to let weeds grow, but apply the godly system, which is employing the values of here's how I tend to my lawn and yard and grass systematically with these values and goals in mind as a matter of policy to take weeds out from here all the time. You will have a clean life, normal life, and you won't bother other people and hurt them and harm them and offend them. Now let's get back to the point. You are, as a mother, you are not allowed to employ that nasty girlfriend dynamic to your son. That's weird. It's almost perverse. It's a twisting of the way it should be. I hope I'm not stating something that's not obvious here, because this should be obvious. A mom and son relationship is different than a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Only if you have something wrong in your mind will you do something to conflate the two such that now it becomes possible to antagonize your own son. Because it's not possible. A normal mother-son relationship, it goes along a certain neural route that's only for that relationship, and it's untouchable. You can't destroy it. But every woman knows, even a guy can be thrown away, who like a peer level dating guy or whatever, it can be thrown away at any moment. So what did we design in civilization? Something called marriage, where you no longer can throw away a guy. You see? So everything that we instill that's from the man's mind, who channels God's system, is a covering for the flaws of nature. In nature, any woman will screw any man over and leave him and cut it. So we design marriage. Now you can't leave. See? Okay. But even in nature, a mother will not go against a son. That's why it's so perverse, and that means twisted. It's so twisted and unnatural, and a betrayal to do that. That when you do that, it is one of the deepest levels of almost unheard of sickness in the world. And as Google searches show, it truly is unheard of.